Hello friends, Mr. Burrell here. We are just getting started into Unit 2. Unit 2 is about statistics. So we're kind of taking a step away from a lot of the algebra type stuff that we have been doing, setting up and solving and graphing different kinds of functions and different kinds of equations. We're going to step away from that for a minute, and we're going to talk a little bit about statistics. So statistics is really its own field. We have a field of mathematics and we have a field of statistics, but they're really closely related and they're very, very helpful to learn about together because they use a lot of the same materials. They use a lot of the same stuff. So that's what this unit is going to be about, is statistics. If you don't know what that means, that's okay. We're going to talk about it. So, just a quick statistic for you. For the past 15 years, nearly 20% of all the daily searches conducted on Google have been new. In other words, every single day, 20% of the search phrases people type in have never been typed before. That's about 500 million searches per day. That's kind of cool. Every single day, 20% of the searches that day have never been typed before. That's a statistic. So where do we see statistics, or the use of statistics in the real world? Where these are just like a small list of all the applications of statistics. There are many more. But people use statistics in predicting weather forecasts, predicting disease, lots of different applications in medical studies, creating vaccines, things like that. Genetics, politics, there's a lot of statistics that goes on with politics. Insurance, quality testing, like in a business, if you're in quality control, you'll use statistics. In the stock market, there's a bunch of statistics used as far as predictions go. And that's just a really short list. Almost any single career that you go to, you will have to either look at or deal with statistics in some way. So to start talking about statistics, we're going to kind of start talking about the basics. We're going to talk about populations and studies. So that's to kind of lay the foreground for what we're going to talk about with statistics. We're going to talk about population and studies. So by the end of this lesson, this is what I want you to be able to do. I want you to be able to define the following terms related to statistics: population, statistic, numerical or quantitative, experiment, parameter, variable, discrete, observational study, sample, categorical or qualitative, continuous, and survey. I probably read those in the reverse order. If you read them from left to right, it probably makes more sense as to what we're going to be talking about. But there's a bunch of terminology that we're going to cover in this unit that's going to be helpful as we move on and continue to talk about statistics and some of the nitty-gritties of statistics. These terms will come in handy. So I want you to be able to identify each of these terms in an example of statistics. That's the goal. So let's start with some definitions. So statistics in general, you can write this down if you have the guided notes. These are available on Canvas. You can follow along. Statistics is basically the science of collecting and analyzing data. So the science of collecting and analyzing data. So we collect information from a group of people or whatever, and then we analyze it. What does this mean? What does this tell us about these people? So specifically, when we're analyzing and collecting data, we're usually concerned with what's going on in a certain population. So a population is all the objects or individuals in the group that the researchers wish to study. So for example, say that I'm interested in all the people in the United States. I'm concerned with something that's happening related to all of the people in the United States. My population would be all of the people in the United States. All the objects that I wish to study. So a parameter is a number that describes the population. So maybe I'm talking about the percentage of people who are unemployed. That would be a parameter. So say I'm trying to determine what the percentage of unemployed people in the United States is. That's a number that describes my population. A sample is a smaller group made up of the objects or individuals in the population who are actually studied. So I can't really by myself go to every single person in the United States and ask them if they are unemployed, right? What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to take a smaller group. I'm going to take a few people from each state maybe, and I'm going to take that sample and analyze that sample to tell me how many of those people are unemployed. So maybe I take like 10 people from each state or something. That would be my sample, because I'm taking a handful of people from my population to analyze. So then a statistic is a number that describes the sample. So maybe from these 10 people in each state, so from these 500 people, I'm going to ask those 500 people and find out what percentage of them is unemployed. Okay? So that's kind of an idea of what some of these first definitions mean. Statistics is the science of collecting and analyzing data. A population is all the people that I'm concerned with studying, and then a parameter is a number representing that entire population. A sample is a smaller group from that population that I'm studying, and a statistic is a number that describes that sample. Okay, so types of variables. So when we're trying to discover something about a population, those somethings that we're trying to discover, the specific things that we're analyzing, are called variables. So a variable, when I'm talking about statistics, a variable is any characteristic of a person or thing, which is the purpose of a study. So let me give another example. Say in my group of everyone that's in the United States, I'm trying to determine the number of people who have brown hair. Or I'm trying to determine the age of different people in the United States. Or maybe I'm trying to determine the color car that different people drive. Or maybe I'm trying to determine their shoe size, something like that. A variable is any characteristic of a person or thing, which is the purpose of the study. So that could be hair color, that could be age, that could be the color of your car, that could be shoe size, that could be your wrist size, that could be the kinds of earrings that you wear, that could be whether or not you're unemployed. That's a variable. Any characteristic of a person, which is the purpose of a study. A categorical variable, or a qualitative variable, is a variable that is described by a word or a phrase. So like something like color, like brown hair, or a blue car, or yes or no, like employed or not employed. That is a categorical variable. It's described by a word or phrase. Where in contrast, a numerical variable or a quantitative variable is a variable that is described by a number. So age, maybe I'm 17 years old, or my shoe size is 10 and a half, or I have 6 children, or I have 18 pieces of property, or I have an income of $40,000 a year. Any variable that can be described by a number is a numerical or a quantitative variable, because you can assign a number to it. Okay, when we're talking about numerical variables, there's a couple different kinds of numerical variables. Discrete variables are a numerical variable described by integers only. When I say integers only, that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So like age, for example. I'm going to say I'm either 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, 17 years old, 18 years old, 19 years old, etc., etc., etc. Or maybe I'm talking about the number of children that I have. I can't have like half a child. I have maybe 3 kids, or 4 kids, or 2 kids. A discrete variable is described by integers only, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A continuous variable is a numerical variable described by decimals and fractions. So like the amount of money that I make in a year could be like $40,000 and 72 cents after taxes, or something like that. Or maybe I'm discussed with like how much people weigh. You could weigh like 180.7 pounds. Or if I'm talking about the temperature, I could be like 70.5 degrees Fahrenheit. A numerical variable can be written as a decimal or a fraction. Discrete variables are only described by integers. So those are different kinds of variables, different kinds of characteristics that we're concerned with of persons or things in a study. Okay, speaking of studies, now that we've talked about different kinds of variables, let's talk about some different kinds of studies. So there are 3 different types of studies we're going to talk about. These aren't the only types of studies you can engage in, but these are the ones we're going to focus on. First is an experiment. An experiment is where a treatment is applied and the response of objects or individuals in the sample is measured. So an experiment, you have like, say, two groups of people. You have two groups of people, and you apply a treatment to one of them. So say, an example is I have two different classes, and I'm trying to determine things that influence how well you do in school. Maybe one class I give a harder homework assignment, and the other class I don't. That would be an experiment because a treatment is being applied. Something is being done to a specific group. I'm giving them a harder homework assignment. Okay? So that would be an experiment. I have my two classes. I give one a harder homework assignment to see how they respond. That's not the only kind of experiment. Lots of experiments happen in like the medical field where people, like two groups are given a specific drug. One group is given a specific drug and one is given a placebo or just like water or something like that to determine if there's an effect. Those are experiments when a treatment is applied. An observational study is characteristics of the objects or individuals in the sample are observed but not influenced. So I don't do anything to the people in the study. In an experiment, I did something specific. I gave them a harder homework assignment, or I gave them a specific drug. In an observational study, I just observed. So maybe I have these two classes. I'm just going to watch these two classes to see how they do. So I have a class of students, and I'm just going to sit and I'm going to observe them. I'm going to sit in the back. I'm going to watch how they do. I'm going to watch how they do their homework. I'm going to see how they're doing as far as effectiveness, if they're working hard, if they're not working at all. I'm just going to observe and take notes about what is being done in that group or in that study. That's an observational study. I just observe. A survey is when individuals in a sample are questioned and their responses are recorded. So maybe I have my classes, and I give them all like a Google form to fill out. And I say, how many hours a day do you study? How well do you understand math? Or whatever the questions may be. A survey is when I ask questions and I record their responses. I ask questions and I record their responses. So this might be like a Facebook survey, or maybe someone at the grocery store asks you to fill a survey out on their receipt or something like that. All those are surveys when individuals in the sample are questioned. A data point is information from an individual or subject who is involved in a study. So, say I go into my group of students, a data point is the information that I collected from a specific individual. So this person right here, maybe I collect data that they got a 90% on their last test, and in their survey they told me that they don't like doing math, so they ranked themselves on a scale of 1 out of 5 on how well they understand math. And maybe in the experiment I see that they did 50% better with the harder homework assignment than they did with the other homework assignment. Whatever information I gather from an individual student or person or object is a data point. Then a data set is a group of data points all involved in the same study. So I take all the information that I gathered from all the participants in my study, that's a data set. All the information from everybody in my sample or in my study or in my experiment or whatever it was, my data set is the group of all of those data points. So, that's it. That's kind of the basis for what we're going to be talking about in this unit. We talked about populations and samples, parameters and statistics. We talked about different kinds of variables, categorical and numerical variables. We talked about discrete and continuous numerical variables. And we talked about experiments, observational studies, and surveys. So hopefully that was helpful. All of that information, all that terminology is going to become extremely helpful in the upcoming lessons as we learn more about statistics and how we use statistics and how it can be beneficial. So I hope that was helpful. Please reach out to me if you have any questions whatsoever, and I hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did.